Believe in the leak. Believe in Cynthia's secret trump card that nobody saw coming. Ash vs Cynthia Part 2 ratcheted up the tension to 151, and every Pokemon who entered the fray had a story to tell. So let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Charles. How are you today? It's been a while. Because following the festivities I chatted about in last week's video, we took a vacation down the coast. And once again, I will throw a few shots in at the end of the video for those who are interested. But long story short, it was refreshing, I saw a fish that can walk, and I now look as red and white as a delibird on account of all the sunshine. But here we are at it again with the continuation of the Ash vs Cynthia battle that kicked off in episode 123 of Pokemon Journeys, and let me tell you, it was a real sizzler. Thanks in large to the heroic exploits of a big bird slapping fools around with a piece of vegetation out there, and a funny fish. So today's plan is to discuss phase 2 of the biggest battle of Ash's career, focusing in on the episode's unlikely heroes, and to have a quick chat about what is coming up next in Pokemon Journeys. And as always, it's going to be a dandy, so kindly subscribe, hit the notification bell awesome, and let's bust out the juicy nuggets. With both Sirfetch'd and Mr. Fish on the card going into this matchup, I was excited to see more of the chemistry displayed between the two in the Drasna battle, wherein they cheered one another on and pushed each other past their limits, and I was not disappointed. To quickly bring everyone up to speed, in the preceding episode, Cynthia's Spiritomb ran Slipshod on Ash's team, blasting off 3 out of 6 of his Pokemon, and if it were not for Yellow Mickey holding the team's ground with a double knockout, then Team Ketchum would be in serious doo-doo. This time, the battle picks up with Dracovish versus Cynthia's Garchomp. That said, after roughing up Dracovish a bit, Cynthia then switches into Roserade. Ash's Dracovish is a wonky character that I wish we had seen more of since Ash befriended it in episode 50, but every time we do see it hit the pitch, it is a treat, and this time was no different. That is to say, that Dracovish's clash with Roserade was a beauty. Mr. Fish took a lashing that would leave Lesser Fish unable to sit for a week, but it pushed through and put Roserade out for the count. What a guy. And with heavy damage on the board and being poisoned to boot, it seemed like it was time for Mr. Fish to take a break. But instead of giving up and letting Ash make a substitution, Mr. Fish refused to go back into its Pokeball, because it wanted to test its mettle against Cynthia's next hitter. Coming out the gates as a zany surprise hitter who snuck a KO in on Dragonite but was easily fish-handled by Big Axew, back in episode 64's Ash vs Iris Great Class Encounter, it wasn't until Sirfetch'd and Dracovish battled side by side against Drasna that Dracovish showed its edge and emerged as a serious contender. And it was a treat to see that indomitable spirit flare up once again. We'd seen how deadly Cynthia's Milotic can be when it choked out Iris's Dragonite in the previous Masters 8 round, and it was more than happy to give Ash's Dracovish a ride on the pain train, and eventually it did seal the deal, but not until after Mr. Fish put up a heck of a fight. But if it was Mr. Fish who set up the play, then it was Sirfetch'd who took the Dunkaroos straight to the basket. But before we break down Duckman's exploits in Ash vs Cynthia, let's quickly put its journey in context to better appreciate what it pulled off out there. Ash first met Sirfetch'd as a wily Galarian Farfetch'd way back in episode 27, when his Riolu took it out in a battle that actually overshadowed the main event of the episode. However, Farfetch'd was immediately relegated to the role of Riolu's jobber sparring partner, failing to make good on a chance to prove itself in an official match against Bigfoot B's Hawlucha in episode 34, and thereafter getting benched for nearly 20 episodes before it reappeared to take down Gemba's Girder in episode 51, only to get humiliated by Rinto's Gallade immediately after. But in the aftermath of that crushing defeat, a redemption arc was set in motion, and after Ash and Farfetch'd bonded over a victory in Kalos Elite 4-member Wickstrom's Hall of Chivalry training course, in episode 60, Farfetch'd evolved into Sirfetch'd mid-battle to slap down Rinto's Gallade in the Ash vs Rinto rematch. And while it got taken down by Hawlucha again in the conclusive third match against B, and failed to do very much at all against Articuno in episode 102, after training with Dracovish under the guidance of Ash's longtime friend Clement, Sirfetch'd mastered its signature move Meteor Assault and put it to use to conquer Kalos Elite 4-member Drasna's Mega Altaria in Ash's penultimate Hyperclass showdown. And with that said, here we are today with Ash's Sirfetch'd ready to prove itself yet again against the strongest opponent Ash has ever faced in an official match, none other than Sinnoh champion Cynthia, ranked number 2 in the world. And here we are, back at Milotic versus Sirfetch'd, and Milotic quickly gained the upper hand, but Sirfetch'd and Ash cooked up a howler of an improv move to fight back and ultimately hammered the nails into Milotic's coffin. It was brilliant, and at this point, Sirfetch'd looked as if he might take Ash all the way to finals and give Leon a wedgie. But its next opponent was the nightmare boss that nobody wanted to face, and all I will say about this one is that Sirfetch'd put its best feather forward. And although Sirfetch'd did not go all the way, it certainly did prove itself as a force to be reckoned with. Trading with Cynthia's Garchomp better than any Pokemon we have ever seen, so much so that it almost looked like it would take the KO. That is to say that it was an absolutely epic effort. But it didn't quite cut the cake. And after Sirfetch'd is rendered unable to battle, still standing on 2 feet, like our precious Catman back in Alola, Cynthia pulls her injured Garchomp out for Togekiss. That bad armless thing that thrashed Pikachu in the previous episode. And Ash sends out his golden boy Lucario, his last shot at a ticket to the Masters 8 finals. I think we all knew the crucial role that he would be playing in this battle well before it began, as Ash's champion appointed to the task of taking down Cynthia's seemingly unbeatable ace. But after an exchange that leaves Lucario reeling and Ash's dreams fading, Cynthia shocks absolutely everyone by Dynamaxing her Togekiss. No, not Mega Evolving or Dynamaxing her Garchomp, but Dynamaxing her Togekiss. Just let that sink in for a moment. And with Ash ready to respond in kind with a big Mega Evolution, the episode draws to a close. Well, what an episode. Lucario punched things, Mr. Fish refusing to return to its Pokeball in an act of resilience warmed my heart, and Sirfetch'd stole the show by taking a big knockout on Milotic and standing tall against a superior foe as the match burned down to the wire. And I don't think anyone saw a Dynamaxed Togekiss coming out instead of Mega Garchomp or Dynachomp, but there you have it. Any hoot hoots. Everyone on deck gave it their all to weather the storm, and while Mr. Fish and Sirfetch'd ultimately fell, they gave Ash's Lucario a fighting chance to finish the job in episode 125. Who will be making it to the World Coronation Series Masters 8 finals for a date with the Purple Panther will be made clear in the following episode, and I am all pumped up for it. Now, on Ash's end, it all comes down to whether or not his Mega Lucario can deliver on the tall order of beating down a Dynamaxed Togekiss and edging out Cynthia's Garchomp for the victory. If we assume that Ash does win, it is going to be a tight squeeze to fit in Ash vs. Leon into the series' remaining episodes. As after the Ash vs. Cynthia finale on September 16th, we have a Go recap episode on September 23rd, another Go episode on September 30th, and a broadcasting break on October 7th, leaving just 3 to 5 episodes within which to take the series to a close. And it's looking like the September 30th episode has nothing to do with Project Mew, which may necessitate 1 or 2 more episodes to finish up that storyline. But however that ends up unfolding, if the series then ends with the standard 1 to 2 wrap-up episodes, then this points to a 2 to 3 episode Ash vs. Leon battle. But of course, there is also always the possibility that Ash fails to beat Cynthia and packs it in early. Only time will tell. So, how about you? What did you think of Ash vs. Cynthia Part 2, and who do you think is going to win the battle? Well, as for today's after story, following the mini wedding festivities part 2 out of 3 that we chatted about last week, it was time to take a trip down to Kenting in southern Taiwan. Firstly, the Ash vs. Cynthia part 1 video needed to go up on Saturday, so I finished cranking out the video during the drive south, and we also stopped at 7-Eleven so that I could take a tinkle and buy a coffee plus a booster pack. As we continued the journey, I pulled a Radiant Venusaur, and I saw a fish that could walk. Big wins all around. Of course, a typhoon had just passed through, so the ocean was quite rough, but the air was cool and refreshing in the midst of an otherwise scorching hot summer in Taiwan. And after arriving in Nightlife Central, we had a tasty dinner, and we had some fun around town, but also packed it in at a decent hour. And over the next 2 days of the trip, we basically just relaxed, enjoyed nature, leveled up our waterbending, managed to avoid being eaten by wild monkeys, and I worked on some video scripts. It was our first vacation in quite some time, and it was a dandy. Any hoot hoots, have yourself a good one, and we will chat again soon.